My sister-in-law believed in invisible supplements, eating walnuts for brain health, drinking bone broth for calcium, and eating grapes meant your child would be born with big eyes. To have a baby with big eyes, she ate 3 bunches of grapes every day. Even after being diagnosed with gestational diabetes, she refused to stop. For her health, I had to take over all the cooking at home, devising countless ways to incorporate vegetables and plant-based protein into her diet. I meticulously checked every ingredient for hidden sugars, and eventually, I helped her give birth to a healthy baby. But later, when my nephew Daniel grew up, he heard rumors of high salaries in the entertainment industry and insisted on joining. His friends teased him, saying his eyes weren't even as big as the wrinkles on his forehead. He came home crying to his mother. Chloe, my sister-in-law, said, "Your mother ate nothing but grapes when she was pregnant. It's just that your Aunt Anna, meaning me, wouldn't let her. Grapes were too expensive, so she forced your mother to eat blueberries instead." How could blueberries be as big as grapes? My nephew, a naive child, didn't know that blueberries were far more expensive than grapes. His mother's words were a complete fabrication. Then, one night, as I slept, he took a knife and gouged out my eyes. If I didn't have big eyes, then neither could my aunt. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the moment Chloe was diagnosed with gestational diabetes. She spouted nonsense. "The baby won't get diabetes, you're just trying to trick me. The baby still wants to have big eyes, how can I do that without eating grapes?" Finishing her protest, she pouted and turned to embrace my brother Leo. "My dearest husband, tell me, can I give you a child with big eyes?" They embraced intimately. Chloe even pouted at Leo. "Of course, darling, I'll love any child you bear, but if they look like you, even better." With that, they started kissing right in front of me. I saw the doctor helplessly place a hand on his forehead, barely suppressing the curses on his lips. Looking at the familiar scene before me, my eyelids twitched. It was then that I realized I had been reborn. Staring at the 2 people in front of me, I wanted nothing more than to tear them limb from limb. In my previous life, it was also at this time. Chloe was 5 months pregnant and diagnosed with gestational diabetes. But she ignored the doctor's advice, stubbornly eating many high-sugar fruits to have a child with big eyes. I understood that gestational diabetes was a sign of a problem in the body. If not controlled in time, both mother and child could be in danger. Fearing she wouldn't believe me, I even found examples online and shared cases I had seen to persuade her. Thanks to the advice of my mother and brother, she eventually gave up her quest for a big-eyed baby. The child born was normal in appearance, but at least healthy. Later, when my nephew grew up and wanted to join the entertainment industry, he was mocked for his small eyes, not even as big as the wrinkles on his forehead. Did he think he was so beautiful? He came home crying to his mother. My sister-in-law shifted all the blame onto me. "It's all because Aunt Anna kept saying that eating too many grapes would cause diabetes back then. She wouldn't let me eat them. She must have been jealous of my child having big eyes, that's why she didn't want me to eat grapes. Otherwise, my child would definitely have eyes as big and bright as grapes." From then on, my nephew hated me, believing I had harmed him out of jealousy. One night, he secretly took a knife, stabbed me to death, and gouged out my eyes. Wasn't Aunt Anna jealous of me? Then I'll gouge out Aunt Anna's eyes. If I couldn't have big eyes, then neither could you, Aunt. My sister-in-law and nephew hastily dug a shallow grave for me. My mother only shed a few tears beside them, but she didn't stop them. They seized the opportunity to transfer all my savings and house deeds into their names, living a life of luxury and wealth. Anna, tell me, isn't that right? The baby still wants to have a big-eyed baby. How can I not eat glucose? Chloe's voice pulled me back to reality. That's right, our Chloe has to have a big-eyed baby. How can you not eat grapes? I'll buy you more when I get home. You'll definitely have a baby with really big eyes. I indulged her, immediately seeing a smile blossom on her face. Looking into their eyes, I suddenly realized they really weren't bigger than the wrinkles on their foreheads. It really must be genetic. I sighed. Today the baby wants watermelon, grapes, and durian. You have to buy them all for the baby. Chloe whined to my brother, but her eyes secretly darted towards me. I knew she wanted me to be the scapegoat. Sure enough, my brother turned to me and ordered without hesitation, "Tonight, you go buy everything the baby wants to eat. After all, she's carrying our family's child." Then he pulled Chloe and left the hospital. As soon as I got home, before I even had a chance to rest my head, Chloe rushed out, her face full of resentment. "Why are you so late? The baby is hungry. Are you trying to starve the baby and my baby to death?" My mother, standing beside her, chimed in, "If you're late again and let your sister-in-law and the baby in her womb go hungry, I won't forgive you." With that, perhaps still not satisfied, she pinched my arm twice. I pushed her hand away and went into the kitchen to cook. My reaction stunned her, and she immediately started scolding me, essentially calling me ungrateful. "In the past, I let you go to school, so I didn't let your brother go. Now you treat him like this," and so on. But I never forced my brother to yield to me. He simply didn't like studying, and my tuition was earned through loans and part-time jobs. Seeing that I didn't react, no one paid any attention to her. She stopped scolding me when I laid the food on the table. My mother glared at me, then moved all the meat dishes away from me. "Chloe, you're the great hero of our family, you must eat plenty of meat." My mother placed braised pork belly and Coca-Cola chicken wings in front of Chloe, urging her to eat a lot. Chloe already loved these dishes. Perhaps pregnancy made her eat more heartily. She ate with increasing relish. I only had a plate of boiled vegetables in front of me, which I quickly finished before leaving the table and heading to the living room. I saw that the durian and grapes I bought had been completely devoured, only the skins remained. "You have to eat them to benefit. I wouldn't force you if you didn't want to." After eating, Chloe dragged me into her room and forced me to take photos of her. She wanted to post them on social media. She showed me previous photos. The comments were all, "Wifey Chloe." But today, after her prenatal checkup, the comments weren't what she wanted. She even declared that the hospital was just a scam. What could possibly happen from eating a few grapes? Perhaps because her story was quite unusual, it started attracting a lot of attention, and the comments were all advising her to be more moderate. When she posted her dinner that day, everyone advised her to eat less, so the baby could develop well and be born healthy. Seeing me looking at her, Chloe lifted her head proudly and boasted to me, "People these days say one thing but mean another. They're just jealous that my baby is doing so well. They say things like that to harm the baby. Don't I know my own baby best? They're just idle people stirring up trouble." She pouted in disdain. I looked at her, surprised that despite so many people advising her, she still stuck to her stance. No surprise, considering her low education, a high-risk factor during pregnancy. I asked her what she wanted to eat tomorrow. She listed a string of dishes all greasy, salty, and meaty. I didn't stop her, just nodded and said, "All right. If you like it, eat it until you're satisfied." I sent my mother some money, telling her to buy nutritious food to nourish Chloe. I had just gotten off work when I saw my mother carrying a huge pile of things. My mother had bought a lot of supplements. I asked her where she bought them, and she stammered, unable to answer, finally just saying they were all expensive items. I flipped through the so-called supplements and found that they were all cheap goods, costing less than a third of the money I had given her. But that actually made me feel more at ease. It was precisely because I knew she was greedy for cheap things that I gave her the money. Otherwise, wouldn't it be better to keep it for myself? These cheap products were all loaded with sugar to hide their flaws. Eating a lot would definitely increase blood sugar. Even for her own pregnant daughter-in-law, my mother never bought expensive, nutritious food, only cheap, fake, and inferior goods. Before I even finished work, my mother hastily called me. At that time, I was in an important meeting and didn't have my phone with me. It wasn't until after work that I saw the missed calls and called back. As soon as the call connected, before I could even open my mouth, my mother's shrill yelling echoed from the phone speaker. "You unfilial daughter, you're nothing but a waste of money. Are you trying to harm this family's only grandson? It takes forever for you to answer the phone. If anything happens to my grandson, I won't forgive you." I was sick of hearing these words. Seeing that she kept talking without getting to the point, I started to lose patience. "What is it, or should I hang up?" I said coldly, truly out of patience with her. After I spoke, as if I had predicted it, I moved the phone away from my ear to avoid being deafened. Through a few disjointed sentences, I finally understood what had happened. Chloe was bleeding, but it was only a little over 7 months, not yet time for her to give birth. The hospital they were admitted to was also close to my company. Before I even entered the hospital room, I heard my mother's voice ringing out. "It really has to be a boy. Only boys are this well-behaved. And what about my daughter? I heard someone was hospitalized and she didn't even bother to ask who it was. What if it was her mother who was hospitalized? Truly a waste." She even pouted in indignation. I pushed the door open and entered. The entire room immediately fell silent. I ignored them, only asking about the baby's condition. My brother said the doctor reported that Chloe's gestational diabetes was severe and had already affected the fetus, with a risk of premature birth. After speaking, he glared at Chloe resentfully. It's all your fault for eating whatever you want. If my son isn't born healthy, I won't forgive you. My mother also chimed in. That's right, Chloe, you didn't abstain from anything, you only ate delicious food, not a single vegetable. Now look what happened. Chloe's eyes welled up with tears. The baby didn't know anything. The baby didn't mean to harm our little precious. Wasn't it mother-in-law who kept forcing the baby to eat so much meat? It's my first pregnancy, the baby didn't know anything. Seeing her daughter-in-law blame her, my mother resolutely plopped down on the floor, covering her face and wailing. I was only worried about the Lamb family's legacy, wanting my daughter-in-law to eat well and be healthy. Who knew it would turn out like this? Everyone around them just stood watching, no one dared to speak up. I looked at my family blaming each other and didn't step forward. Otherwise, I would surely be the one cursed. I pretended to have an urgent matter at work and quickly left the hospital room. When I got home after work, my mother had already cooked dinner and was waiting for me. Seeing that scene, I immediately knew something was wrong. Normally, we either ate out or I cooked. My mother hadn't been in the kitchen for a long time. Something was definitely up. Seeing the bowls and chopsticks laid out on the table, I didn't stand on ceremony, put my bag down, and began to eat. Sure enough, after only a few bites, my mother opened her mouth. Anna, Chloe's hospitalization this time costs a lot of money. Can you ask the hospital for a discount? Your friend works at the hospital, can you ask them to help reduce the fees? I looked at my mother's head, feeling like it must be full of water. I couldn't help but retort sarcastically. Do you think the hospital is a shop I own, that I can demand a discount? Why don't you try the orthopedics department and see if they'll offer a discount on broken bones? Seeing my sarcastic remarks, she angrily threw things to the ground. My mother frowned. If you can't get a discount, then you pay your brother's hospital bills. He gave up his education for you, and now you're a doctor earning a lot of money. Don't forget your gratitude. I wasn't ungrateful. Besides, over all these years, I had repaid them for everything they had given me. Now, I wouldn't give another penny. I then complained, where would I get the money now? Just buying fruit for Chloe every month eats up more than half my salary. I took out an edited photo on my phone to show her. She gasped, how can it cost so much every month? Truly a waste. Even so, my mother still suspected I had money hidden away. Seeing that she didn't believe me, I also started to lament my troubles. Some time ago, when my sister-in-law was pregnant, I didn't even dare to tell you that I was scammed out of all my savings from the past few years. I already reported it to the police, and now I can't even afford the installment payments. I was even planning to borrow some money from you to get by. Seeing me holding the police report, they shun me as if I were a plague. You good for nothing. If you don't give money to your brother and me, who will support you later? And now you've even been scammed. I don't have money, I can't deal with your nonsense. Don't stay at home anymore, go live somewhere else, don't drag this family down. The moment she realized I was out of money, my mother's expression immediately changed, and her words were no longer as gentle as before. I pretended to beg for a few moments, then packed my luggage and moved into a hotel. Chloe wasn't hospitalized for long before she was sent home to recuperate. The doctor forbade her from eating sugary foods, but she had grown accustomed to them during pregnancy. So, every day she secretly went out for a walk and took the opportunity to snack on forbidden foods. My mother feared that not allowing her to eat delicious food would affect the baby, so she stewed nourishing broths for her every day. Chloe's lack of dietary restraint, combined with eating cheap, low-quality supplements, ultimately led to her premature birth. The child was just 8 months old, and like in my previous life, it was a boy. But when she gave birth, I was no longer in the country. I requested a company exchange program, not telling them I was going abroad. So when they called me, they still thought I was in the country and asked me to visit Chloe at the hospital. I told them I couldn't come. I'm already abroad. I made a mistake at work, and my boss sent me away for a few years of training. Mom, I miss home so much, I don't want to be here anymore. Can you and Leo send some gifts to my boss, so he'll let me come home early? Hearing me say that, my mother didn't hesitate to hang up in a huff. I knew her too well. She was prejudiced against women, and I couldn't expect a single penny from her. My nephew was born prematurely and had to be admitted to the ICU immediately. Chloe's condition was also not good. During childbirth, because my nephew was too big, my mother refused to let her have a C-section, fearing it would affect the baby. As a result, Chloe's lower body was severely torn during birth. Subsequent tests revealed the baby had jaundice and also suffered from hypoglycemia due to the mother's high sugar levels. both mother and child remained hospitalized for a month. Initially, my mother was happy to have a grandson, but when she saw the exorbitant costs, she started to resent Chloe. During Chloe's confinement in the hospital, my mother brought bland, meatless food every day, sometimes even just vegetables. But Chloe was not one to be easily bullied. Having just given birth to a son, she became even more assertive, arguing with my mother daily. Their roommates were tormented to the point of constantly complaining to the hospital. Seeing the situation had stabilized, the hospital quickly urged them to be discharged. Chloe even sent me a few photos, wanting me to send some money, but I pretended not to see them. Looking at the familiar baby in the photo, I recalled that it was the same in my previous life. Although my nephew was born full term, his body was very weak due to nutrient deficiencies in the womb. Since his birth, Chloe had always blamed me, saying that because I didn't let her take vitamins, I had to take care of my nephew every night after I got home from work. Although I didn't think it was my fault, the baby was too young and truly pitiful, so I couldn't bring myself to abandon him. More than half of my salary went to him. Even when he was sick, I was the one who took him to the hospital, staying up all night to watch over him. His parents, on the other hand, didn't worry about anything. And yet, this very nephew, whom I cared for so devotedly, was the one who killed me in my previous life. This time, I wanted to see how they would raise him without my intervention. Because he was a premature boy, the whole family spoiled him immensely. At just 5 years old, while playing with the neighbor's daughter, he pushed her into a pond. After pushing her, he didn't even call for adults but ran away. Fortunately, another child saw it and called for help, thus avoiding tragedy. When the police arrived, my nephew even said he was just playing. Although young, the other parents sued, demanding that my brother and Chloe pay 300,000 yuan in compensation, or one of them would have an arm chopped off, and they would drop the case. Of course, no one wanted to lose an arm, but they also didn't have the money. My brother, despite having a job, had a low education. His long-saved money had been completely depleted when my nephew was born. Chloe and my mother had no jobs and even less money. So, without hesitation, they thought of me. "Anna, please lend us 300,000 yuan. My mother and I will pay you back." After returning from abroad, I no longer lived with them but had bought my own house. I don't know how, but they found out my new address. Early in the morning, they stood outside my door, wailing like banshees, banging on the door as if to shake the heavens and earth. But I still didn't open the door, only speaking through the doorbell. Where would I get the money? "The money I was scammed out of hasn't even been recovered, and you wouldn't let me live at home. Now I have nowhere to go and have to stay at someone else's house." Suddenly, I had a bad feeling. Sure enough, they immediately continued, "Didn't Grandpa leave you a small house? Why don't you sell it? We heard that area has increased in value a lot in recent years. Selling it would surely get you 100,000 yuan. Seeing their brazen attitude, I felt a chill. That house was left to me by my grandfather, the only person in this family who had ever shown me any warmth. When he passed away, that house was only worth a few thousand yuan. They didn't even bother to fight me for it, but I kept it, refusing to sell it because it was my memory with Grandpa. I never expected them to target it now. I said coldly, "When I had trouble before, you didn't even ask, but kicked me out of the house, afraid I would drag you down. Now I have nothing, I can't help you." Hearing this, my mother immediately sat down on the ground and wailed, "Everyone, look, this unfilial child, her family has men who need help, and she won't even lend a hand. Once she has money, she forgets all about her family." Neighbors heard my mother wailing and opened their doors to peek. I coldly watched my mother rambling about her unfilial child when my phone signaled a message from the building management. They had arrived. I opened the camera to see that indeed, my mother, brother, and his wife were being escorted into the elevator by the building management. My mother was still struggling. The management said if she continued, they would call the police. Only then did she obediently leave, looking reluctantly over her shoulder. I knew this wasn't over. I thought they would come back to cause trouble, but I never expected them to sue me, demanding alimony. When I received the court summons, I was truly shocked. I never thought they would do something like that. At the trial, I saw their eyes filled with hatred. At this point, I understood that there was nothing left between us. I still kept all the transfer messages to my mother and the receipts for purchases when we lived together before. All of it could prove that I was not irresponsible. Moreover, my mother was only in her early 40s, not yet old enough to require support from her children. The court rejected their request and even ordered them to pay my legal fees. Leaving the court, my mother grabbed me, not letting me go. She deliberately tried to evoke sympathy. "He's your real brother. He treated you so well when you were little. How can you bear to see him have his arm chopped off? I worked so hard to raise you, and now you're like this, unwilling to even help your own family. You truly have a wolf's heart. If I had known, I would have strangled you at birth." As she spoke, her grip tightened, making my hand throb with pain. I looked at her, laughing at her blatant manipulation of right and wrong. I didn't understand how there could be such terrible parents who were also ridiculously self-righteous. "You want to talk reason? Let me make it clear. From the time I had a little understanding, you made me do housework. In the bitter cold winter, I had to follow you to the fields to farm. I once wondered why my parents didn't love me. If I had anything good or a little money in my hand, you would steal it. In middle school, I was the class treasurer, and my brother, Leo, stole the money, causing me to be severely scolded by the teacher. When the teacher called you mother, you not only didn't apologize but scolded the teacher, saying he shouldn't entrust money to students. So what right do you have to ask me for help now? Afterward, it was still my grandfather who gave me money to replace the class funds. And now you still blame me?" I looked at my mother with disgust. Neighbors around us started whispering and pointing. She choked, unable to say anything, but still clung tightly to me. "Anyway, you still have to give us money. Otherwise, don't recognize me as your mother anymore." I yanked my hand away. "I wish I had never been your child, who would be unlucky enough to have a misogynistic mother like you." With that, I turned and walked straight away without looking back. My brother saw that my mother couldn't get any money and started scolding her. But time was running out, and they still didn't have 300,000 yuan. Finally, out of options, my brother and Chloe had to sell their house to gather enough money for compensation. My nephew Daniel started dating and getting into fights in middle school. He didn't listen in class and caused chaos. Since it was compulsory education, he couldn't be expelled, so teachers constantly called my brother and Chloe. They had to go to school to apologize, bringing gifts to appease the teachers. Their family lived in extreme poverty. After my nephew was born, Chloe was diagnosed with diabetes and had to take injections and medication continuously over the years. My nephew's health was also weak, and he frequently had to go to the hospital. The cost of living for 4 people, plus my nephew's rebellious nature, made their lives extremely difficult. After graduating from middle school, my nephew didn't get into high school. My brother had to pay for him to attend a vocational school. There, he befriended a group of delinquents, cared even less about studying, and constantly skipped school to go to internet cafes. My brother and Chloe couldn't stand it. Every time he came home from school, they locked him inside. Who knew he would snatch the keys and even kick and injure my brother and me? My nephew was in his rebellious phase and had no money, so he turned to theft. He and a few friends his age snuck into someone's house late at night to steal. Unexpectedly, they were discovered by the homeowner. My nephew and his friends were afraid of being caught. In a panic, they stabbed the person twice, killing the victim on the spot. The victim's family was extremely enraged, demanding the harshest possible punishment, even refusing compensation. Initially, my brother and Chloe tried to use his age as an excuse to avoid responsibility, but my nephew was already 14, the age of criminal responsibility. The incident caused a public outcry, and people overwhelmingly favored severe punishment. Although my nephew didn't directly kill the person, he was an accomplice and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. My brother and Chloe continued to appeal, seeking a letter of forgiveness from the victim's family. The victim's family said they would write a letter of withdrawal if they were given 1 million yuan. So, long-lost relatives, suddenly smelling money, acknowledged them. Truly, even in the deep mountains, rich people find relatives. I looked at my brother and Chloe standing before me, crying miserably, and felt disgusted. If they had known this day would come, why didn't they reform earlier? The incident when they were young wasn't enough to warn them, and now they had caused a murder. I looked at them, speechless. Even if I had the money, I wouldn't give it to you. Having relatives like you is humiliating enough. Now you want me to help that boy get out of prison early? How ridiculous. Hearing me say that, my brother's face turned red. He's your real nephew. You're not married, are you? When you die, won't you have to rely on your nephew and me? If no one burns incense for you, you'll become a wandering ghost, unable to reincarnate. I looked at his serious face spouting such absurdities and found it funny. So, having a son means you get a second life. If I die and am thrown into the street, let's see who's afraid. And about burning incense. With what your son did, I fear King Yama will come for him even sooner. They then said, just wait until that boy has a bright future, don't you dare come asking us for help. There's a saying, fortune rotates, 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. I didn't bother to argue, calling security to escort them away. Because they didn't have enough money, my nephew was still sentenced to 10 years. They believed that after he served his sentence, his life would be over, so they decided to have more children. Chloe was an older mother by then. They spent a lot of money on IVF, trying to have twins. Due to poor egg quality, they had to try repeatedly before it was successful. During pregnancy, her health was weak, so she had to stay in bed to recuperate. Years of diabetes made her mood even more erratic during pregnancy. She had to take a series of medications to maintain the pregnancy. But despite their efforts, the fetuses were born prematurely in the 7th month. The 2 children had to be admitted to the ICU immediately after birth. Chloe, during childbirth, suffered an amniotic fluid embolism and couldn't be saved. The 2 children also passed away. My brother suffered a severe shock, a cerebral hemorrhage, and was hospitalized. Eventually, he recovered, but for the rest of his life, he was paralyzed, confined to a bed, requiring others to care for him. The entire family, one dead, one in prison, mother living in a state of confusion and dementia all day. On the street, a kind stranger saw her condition and reported it to the police. Only then did the police contact me. I rushed there, looking at the skeletal woman, so disfigured that I almost didn't recognize her. I could hardly believe my eyes. As soon as she saw me, she lunged forward and hugged me, tears streaming like a river. It's Mother's fault. Mother failed to raise them properly. That's why it turned out like this. How could a family be so shattered? I silently looked at her, with only one question in my heart. It shouldn't have come to this. Although the police had called me, I didn't want any further involvement with them. I contacted a nursing home in our hometown, arranging for my brother and mother to stay there to care for each other. That was the last shred of familial affection. Because Mother gave birth to me, by returning this favor, we no longer owed each other anything. After resolving everything, I finally felt truly relieved. It was finally over. Good and evil both received their due. I would go and embrace my new life.